like we talk about the military-industrial complex.
Right.
But this is
a campaign industrial complex. That's what it is.
Exactly, because people are making fortunes.
That's all that this is about. That it has come to this. And it's heartbreaking to see how many people apparently don't see this.
So why then are you staying in the race?
Well, I feel that, Martin Luther King said your life begins to end on the day you stop talking about things that matter. I'm talking about things that matter. And many of the things that matter are not being discussed on that debate stage. And the fact that I tried to discuss them on the debate stage is why the effort was made to make sure I got off the debate stage. They're not talking about child poverty. They're not talking about 13 million children who are hungry in this country, 100,000 children who are homeless in this country. They're not talking about the fact that millions of American children go to school every day in classrooms that don't even have the adequate school supplies with which to teach a child to read, and that if a child cannot learn to read by the age of 8, the chances of high school graduation are drastically decreased, and the chances of incarceration are drastically increased. This is a vast sea of unnecessary human suffering. I believe that if you have what we have today, which is our educational funding primarily based on property taxes, in the richest country in the world, you're going to withhold a high-quality education from a child just because their parents don't have money. That is a passive form of oppression.
Yeah,
These are the kinds of things, and I talk about the military-industrial complex.
Right.
And
which, by the way, has its grips in every congressional district
Absolutely.
in the country.
53 cents of every dollar is spent on defense-related activity, although from a purely economic perspective, we make more money through investments in infrastructure and education. Yeah. And so Tulsi Gabbard and I are the only people who even go there. There's a reason for this, and there's a reason why we're the two who are so smeared.
As you were talking, I'm going to go back to my Detroit days. You may or may not remember this person, but when you started talking about children, poverty, and hunger, I remember a Catholic priest named Father Cunningham. Do you remember Father Cunningham in Detroit? It was right after the riots. And he always he used to remind me, you have never seen real anger in a child until you've seen a child go hungry.
The trauma. Poverty is a trauma.
Yes.
Hunger is a trauma. The fact, and we're not even dealing with the fact, for instance, every time there's another school shooting, I don't know how much the average American is registering what is happening inside the hearts and minds and souls of these children who are now doing lockdowns in case there's a school shooting.
Right.
We're not even having this conversation.
Yeah.
We're not even talking about it as a nation. And then what happens, you've got 93 million Americans living in near poverty, which means tens of millions of people every day in the chronic tension and anxiety of not knowing what will happen if they get sick, not knowing what will happen if their kids get sick, not knowing how they will send their kids to college, not knowing how they will get out from under these college loans. And then we talk about a mental health crisis. So these politicians come around and say, we ask them, how are you going to solve the mental health crisis? I'll tell you how you solve the mental health crisis. Stop driving everybody crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Stop driving, stop passing policies that almost make it inevitable, that create this petri dish of unnecessary human despair out of which societal dysfunction is almost inevitable.